What were the 20 forgotten Hanna-Barbera spin-offs that flopped so badly, even die-hard fans barely talk about them? Once the masters of Saturday mornings, Hanna-Barbera tried to stretch their biggest hits into endless sequels and paid the price. Some rewired beloved classics, others chased trends that never landed. Between recycled jokes, odd crossovers, and total creative chaos, these experiments show that even legends can stumble. Think you know every Hanna-Barbera cartoon? Wait till you see the ones time tried to erase. Number 20. The Jetsons Meet the Flintstones, 1987. On paper, it sounded like an animated dream come true. The space-age Jetsons colliding with the Stone Age Flintstones, two of Hanna-Barbera's biggest families finally crossing timelines. When the Jetsons Meet the Flintstones premiered as a television movie, in 1987 fans expected fireworks. What they got was a collision of nostalgia and chaos. The story sent the Jetsons back in time thanks to a time travel mishap, landing them smack in Bedrock, where they met Fred Wilma and the gang. The novelty of future tech, meeting prehistoric life had potential, but the execution was sluggish. The film leaned heavily on recycled jokes and predictable past-meets-future gags. Critics pointed out that it felt more like a commercial for reruns than a true creative crossover. Even loyal fans were underwhelmed by how awkwardly the two worlds mixed. The animation looked dated for the late 80s, especially as studios like Disney and Don Bluth were raising the bar for television films. Still, it stands as a curious time capsule, one last attempt to revive two aging franchises before the cartoon boom of the 90s. The Jetsons Meet the Flintstones wasn't awful, just unnecessary. It proved that even Hanna-Barbera's biggest hits could lose their spark when forced together for one more ride through time. Number 19. The Flintstone Comedy Show, 1980. When the Flintstone Comedy Show arrived in 1980, Hanna-Barbera was desperate to keep Bedrock alive. This wasn't just a continuation, it was a full-on variety hour. The show mixed sketch-style segments starring Fred and Barney, with short adventures featuring Pebbles and Bam Bam Captain Caveman, and even the Shmoo. It was Bedrock meets Saturday Night Live, without the laughs. Each episode crammed in so many side stories that it felt like channel surfing in cartoon form. Viewers could barely keep up. 1 minute Fred was solving a mystery, the next Captain Caveman was popping out of nowhere. The tone swung wildly between slapstick parody and random crime-solving plots. Critics were quick to note that the show lacked focus. The charm of the Flintstones had always been its simple, prehistoric spin on family life. Here, that humor was buried under layers of noise. Even the animation looked rushed, bright but flat, a sign of the studio's cost-cutting years. The audience didn't stick around. Ratings fell fast, and reruns vanished by mid-decade. Still, the series has a weird charm. It tried to modernize Bedrock for a restless new generation, but in doing so, lost what made it lovable in the first place. The Flintstone Comedy Show is proof that not every comeback deserves a curtain call. Number 18. The New Shmoo, 1979. By the late 70s, Hanna-Barbera decided to revive the Shmoo, a shape-shifting blob from Leo Abner. In the New Shmoo, the creature returned as the lovable mascot for a teenage mystery team. The problem? It was Scooby-Doo in disguise, minus the charm plus a lot more goo. Each episode followed the kids and their blobby sidekick as they solved mysteries no one really cared about. The formula was painfully familiar. A chase, a laugh track, and the Shmoo transforming into something random to save the day. Critics instantly spotted the repetition, calling it Scooby with slime. Even worse, the animation felt rushed, and the humor leaned toward awkward rather than clever. Audiences didn't bite. Competing against Super Friends and Bugs Bunny, it simply got lost in the lineup. The New Shmoo fizzled after one season, and the character's brief revival in Fred and Barney Meet the Shmoo didn't help either. It was one of Hanna-Barbera's most forgettable clones, proof that you can't just copy success and expect magic. Number 17. Yogi's Space Race, 1978. When Star Wars mania hit, Hanna-Barbera launched their own cosmic adventure, Yogi's Space Race. The idea was wild. Send Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, and new alien sidekicks into intergalactic racing tournaments. But what sounded exciting turned into a clunky blend of chaos and confusion. The show's mix of talking animals, spaceships, and cheesy morals never quite meshed. Plots moved fast but went nowhere, and Yogi's charm disappeared amid endless gadgets and catchphrases. Viewers loved him for outsmarting Rangers, not piloting rockets. Episodes were chopped into multiple mini-stories, making everything feel rushed and disconnected. Even kids couldn't follow it. Within months, Yogi's Space Race was split into other short-lived series that vanished just as quickly. Despite good intentions, it proved that Hanna-Barbera's formula didn't always travel well through space. Yogi didn't need a spaceship, just a picnic basket. Number 16. Yo Yogi, 1991. In the early 90s, Hanna-Barbera tried to make their classic characters cool again. The result was Yo Yogi, a bizarre reimagining where Yogi, Boo Boo, and Cindy became teenage mall detectives. The studio called it hip. Audiences called it awkward. Gone was Jellystone Park, replaced by Jellystone Mall, complete with skateboards, slang, and neon colors. Every episode followed the gang solving light-hearted mall mysteries while trying to sound trendy. The jokes missed, the pacing dragged, and the radical attitude already felt outdated. Even cameos from Snagglepuss and Huckleberry Hound couldn't save it. Classic fans hated the teen versions, and new viewers didn't care. The show ended after one short season, leaving behind a colorful but cringeworthy memory. Yo Yogi was Hanna-Barbera's attempt to stay relevant in a changing era, and a reminder that even legends can trip trying to act young again. Number 15. The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, 1968. Hanna-Barbera went experimental in 1968 with The New Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, blending live-action actors with animated worlds. Huck, Tom, and Becky were thrown into weekly adventures where they battled pirates, monsters, and sorcerers in cartoon settings. It looked ambitious, but the novelty wore thin quickly. The live-action inserts felt stiff against the animated backdrops, and the transitions looked clunky even for the late 60s. Kids expecting fun cartoons found the pacing slow, while adults dismissed it as a gimmick. Production costs were high, and the return was low. After one season, the show quietly disappeared, overshadowed by simpler, cheaper hits like Scooby-Doo. Still, it deserves credit as a technical experiment, a step toward hybrids like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? For Hanna-Barbera, though, it was an expensive reminder that audiences didn't want live action in their Saturday morning lineups. Number 14. The Space Stars Show, 1981. By the early 80s, Hanna-Barbera tried to revive their sci-fi heroes with The Space Stars Show. It featured Space Ghost the Herculoids and a pack of new characters battling villains across the galaxy. On paper, it sounded epic, a shared universe of Hanna-Barbera's space icons. But the execution was clumsy. Segments felt disjointed, the pacing dragged, and the animation looked cheaper than the originals. Even crossover finales failed to spark excitement. Kids found it confusing, adults found it boring, and the nostalgia factor wasn't strong enough to keep it alive. It lasted just one season before vanishing. Though ambitious, the Space Stars Show proved you can't revive old heroes with weak storytelling. It remains a faint memory, a reminder that not all stars burn bright twice. Number 13. Laugh Olympics, 1977. Laugh Olympics was Hanna-Barbera's answer to the Olympics craze. It threw dozens of their characters into wild competitions across the globe. Scooby's team versus Yogi's team versus the villainous Really Rottens. The concept had charm. Endless crossovers, fan favorites teaming up, and zany contests. But the format became predictable fast. Each episode followed the same formula, outcomes felt rigged, and jokes rarely landed. The long run time stretched thin material even further. Critics called it repetitive, and kids eventually tuned out. Still, it stands as one of Hanna-Barbera's strangest experiments, part parody, part crossover, part sports spoof. It fizzled rather than failed, remembered more as a curiosity than a classic. For a brief moment, though, it was the ultimate Saturday morning mashup. Number 12. The Harlem Globetrotters Popcorn Machine, 1974. Hanna-Barbera loved turning real-life icons into cartoons, and few were bigger than the Harlem Globetrotters. Their original animated series was a hit mixing basketball tricks with slapstick humor. But when the studio tried to evolve the concept into a sketch comedy show called The Harlem Globetrotters Popcorn Machine in 1974, the result was pure confusion. The series wasn't animated, it was live action, mixed with cartoon inserts, blending musical numbers, skits, and game segments hosted by the Globetrotters themselves. It was part variety show, part children's comedy, and entirely chaotic. Viewers had no idea what it was supposed to be. The humor didn't land, the pacing was erratic, and the novelty wore off fast. Audiences who tuned in expecting basketball antics got corny jokes instead. Even the team's famous charm couldn't save it. After one short season, Popcorn Machine vanished into television history, remembered only by a few curious fans who caught reruns. It's a strange relic, Hanna-Barbera's attempt to turn sports heroes into Saturday morning entertainers. It might have been a fun experiment, but it proved one thing: some magic only works on the court. Number 11. The New Adventures of Gilligan, 1974. When Gilligan's Island refused to fade from memory, Hanna-Barbera tried turning it into a cartoon. The New Adventures of Gilligan arrived in 1974, bringing back most of the original cast to voice their animated counterparts. It should have been a nostalgic hit, but it wasn't. The tropical charm of the live-action sitcom vanished in flat animation and recycled jokes. Every episode followed the same setup: Gilligan's clumsy mistake, the professor's fix, and another failed escape. The laugh track only made it feel more forced. Critics called it a rerun in slow motion, and even devoted fans struggled to stay entertained. Though it ran for 2 short seasons, ratings sank like a shipwreck. The studio tried again with Gilligan's Planet, sending the cast into space, an idea that flopped even harder. Looking back, The New Adventures of Gilligan showed the limits of nostalgia. Some classics simply belong in their original form. The cartoon wasn't terrible, it was just pointless, proving that charm doesn't always survive the jump from live action to Saturday morning animation. Number 10. The Roman Holidays, 1972. After the Flintstones and the Jetsons, Hanna-Barbera decided to go ancient, literally. The Roman Holidays transported the suburban sitcom format to ancient Rome, following Gus Holliday, his wife Lori, and their kids as they juggled chariot repairs, rent, and nosy neighbors. The concept sounded clever, another family comedy set in a modern past, but audiences quickly saw through it. Critics called it the Flintstones in togas, and the jokes, mostly weak puns and recycled gags, landed with a thud. Even the voice talents of Dom DeLuise and Dawes Butler couldn't save it. It aired for just 13 episodes before being canceled, never finding its footing. Viewers were tired of time period clones, and this one felt like a desperate attempt to repeat a formula that had already peaked a decade earlier. Still, the Roman Holidays remains a curious experiment, an animated reminder that even empires and studios eventually overextend themselves. Number 9. The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan, 1972. Riding the mystery craze sparked by Scooby-Doo, Hanna-Barbera introduced The Amazing Chan and the Chan Clan, a show about a large Chinese-American family solving crimes with gadgets, vans, and catchy tunes. It should have been a hit. Instead, it became a cultural misfire. The mysteries were simple, but the storytelling was messy. Worse, the network replaced the original Asian American voice actors after early test screenings, claiming audiences couldn't understand them. An unfortunate decision that stripped the show of authenticity. Despite good intentions and a lively theme song, it never clicked. Viewers found it confusing, critics found it bland, and by the end of 1972 it was gone. Still, it remains a notable footnote, an early flawed attempt at representation that meant well but failed to deliver heart or humor. Number 8. The New Adventures of Captain Caveman, 1980. After his success alongside the Teen Angels, Hanna-Barbera gave Captain Caveman his own spin-off. The New Adventures of Captain Caveman aired in 1980, promising prehistoric heroics and goofy fun. But without his mystery-solving sidekicks, Cavey felt lost. Each short featured the club-wielding caveman saving the day in repetitive gags that quickly grew stale. The animation looked rushed, and the humor relied entirely on shouting and slapstick. Kids who once loved his chaotic charm soon got bored. Critics dismissed it as noise over nostalgia. Even Hanna-Barbera seemed unsure what to do with the character afterward. Though Captain Caveman lived on through cameos and cult nostalgia, this spin-off is mostly forgotten, a fossil from the studio's struggling transition into the 80s. Number 7. Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo, 1979. When ratings dipped for Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, Hanna-Barbera tried to save it with a new character, Scrappy-Doo, Scooby's pint-sized, overconfident nephew. The plan was to bring fresh energy. Instead, it split the fan base for decades. Scrappy's constant shouting and fearless attitude replaced the spooky mystery tone with slapstick chaos. Every episode followed the same routine. Scrappy rushed in the gang, panicked, and Scooby whimpered. The once creepy atmosphere turned into noisy comedy. Critics weren't kind. Many called Scrappy the cousin Oliver of cartoons. The show's charm vanished as older fans tuned out. Even Hanna-Barbera writers later admitted they didn't know how to make him likable. Still, Scooby-Doo and Scrappy-Doo deserves credit for keeping the franchise alive long enough to evolve again in the 90s. Scrappy might have been annoying, but without him, Scooby might have gone extinct. Number 6. The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, 1985. The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo dared to change the formula completely. This time, Scooby and Shaggy accidentally unleashed 13 real ghosts and had to capture them all, guided by a mysterious warlock voiced by Vincent Price. The darker tone confused audiences. Parents thought it was too eerie for children, while older fans missed Fred and Velma. The episodes were ambitious but uneven, half horror, half comedy, with a little chaos in between. Despite stunning voice work from Price, the show ended after just one season, 13 episodes for 13 ghosts. Viewers simply weren't ready for supernatural Scooby. Over time, though, it gained a cult following for its spooky visuals and bold direction. It remains one of Hanna-Barbera's strangest and most daring experiments, an unforgettable flop haunted by its own ambition. Number 5. The New Scooby-Doo Movies, 1972. In the new Scooby-Doo movies, the gang teamed up with celebrity guests from Batman and Robin to the Harlem Globetrotters. It sounded fun, but the gimmick wore out fast. Each hour-long episode dragged, stuffed with awkward cameos and clunky dialogue. The longer runtime diluted the mystery, leaving endless filler scenes where the stars barely interacted with the gang. Kids liked the guest appearances, but even they noticed the sluggish pace. Critics called it too long, too loud, and too empty. Still, the series reflected early 70s pop culture's obsession with crossover spectacles. Though far from a disaster, the new Scooby-Doo movies showed that sometimes less is more. The charm of Scooby-Doo was never about the stars, it was about the scares. Number 4. Fred and Barney Meet the Shmoo, 1979. When you mix Bedrock with a blobby shapeshifter from another franchise, what do you get? A crossover that made everyone scratch their heads. Fred and Barney Meet the Shmoo was Hanna-Barbera's attempt to merge the Flintstones and the new Shmoo into one mega show. The problem? These worlds didn't fit together, and neither did their audiences. The series paired prehistoric hijinks with weird, futuristic creatures and mystery plots. Viewers expecting classic Flintstone comedy were met with a strange blend of slapstick and science fiction. The structure was confusing, alternating between different cartoon segments with little cohesion. Even loyal Flintstones fans felt disconnected. Critics called it Bedrock gone bonkers. Kids were equally puzzled by why a friendly blob was hanging out with cavemen who lived next to talking dinosaurs. The lack of focus and recycled animation made it look more like a patchwork experiment than a proper show. Despite its flaws, the series holds a strange charm today. It reflects a time when Hanna-Barbera was trying everything to keep their old hits alive in an era of changing tastes. Fred and Barney Meet. The Shmoo wasn't just a misfire, it was a desperate, fascinating attempt to blend nostalgia and novelty. Unfortunately, the result was more prehistoric pudding than prime-time gold. Number 3. The Pebbles and Bam Bam Show, 1971. After the Flintstones ended, Hanna-Barbera tried to keep Bedrock alive through the next generation. The Pebbles and Bam Bam Show imagined the babies all grown up two teens navigating prehistoric high school life with rock bands, crushes, and slang straight out of the 70s. At first, it seemed like a fun update. Pebbles was clever. Bam Bam was strong but clueless, and the show had a catchy theme song, but it quickly lost the spark that made the original special. Instead of sharp adult humor, viewers got endless teen troubles and recycled sitcom plots. The psychedelic colors and trendy phrases dated it fast, and adults found it too childish. Even kids drifted away once the novelty faded. It lasted just one season before being folded into the Flintstone Comedy Hour. Still, the idea of continuing the Bedrock legacy was admirable. The Pebbles and Bam Bam Show remains a quirky time capsule proof that even Stone Age families weren't immune to growing pains. Number 2. Yo Yogi, 1991. When Hanna-Barbera tried to modernize their classics for the 90s, they gave us Yo Yogi, a wild attempt to turn Yogi Bear and friends into skateboarding, slang-speaking mall detectives. It was as strange as it sounds. Set in Jellystone Mall instead of the park, the show followed teen versions of Yogi, Boo Boo, and Cindy, solving small mysteries while trying to sound cool. Bright, neon colors, street lingo, and pop references filled every frame, but it all felt forced. Older fans hated the changes while younger ones didn't care. Critics called it a cartoon trying to wear sunglasses indoors. Even cameos from classic characters couldn't save it. Yo Yogi lasted just one season before fading into TV obscurity. Today, it's remembered as a clumsy experiment, a well-meaning but misguided attempt to prove that even bears can be radical. Unfortunately, Yogi didn't need sneakers or slang, he just needed his picnic basket. Number 1. The New Yogi Bear Show, 1988. Nearly 3 decades after his debut, Hanna-Barbera brought Yogi back with The New Yogi Bear Show. The studio hoped to rekindle Jellystone's old charm, but the revival felt more recycled than refreshed. Yogi Boo Boo and Ranger Smith returned with updated animation and sound, yet the plots were identical to the 60s originals: picnic basket schemes, park mishaps, and endless moral lessons. Fans, expecting something new, found a cartoon stuck in time. By the late 80s, kids wanted fast-paced shows like DuckTales and The Real Ghostbusters. Against that competition, Yogi's gentle antics felt outdated. Critics called it pleasant but pointless, and it quietly ended after one season. Still, the series has nostalgic value. It was Hanna-Barbera's final salute to its golden era before new animation styles took over. The new Yogi Bear show wasn't terrible, it was just tired, a quiet goodbye to a once booming empire of Saturday morning legends. These forgotten spin-offs prove that even legends can stumble. For every timeless gem, Hanna-Barbera left behind a pile of colorful curiosities, ambitious, chaotic, and sometimes oddly brilliant in their failure. They remind us that creativity always comes with risk, and even the most lovable characters can lose their way chasing reinvention. Which one of these flops do you remember seeing, or barely remembering at all? Tell us below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more hidden TV history.